Well, one thing you got a problem with the bikes, and actually on the big ones, they'll have the fender tips on the front fenders too, because the end of the fender gets scratched up. I just kind of clear coated this fender real quick last week. It's a little dirty right now, but clear coat came out pretty good. I put a fender tip down on the back of this thing, and I was kind of like, well, it always gets chipped up back there. And when I put it on with, I use some of this stuff here. This is like the Velcro, double-sided, the tape on there. It's for like, for Velcro basically, right? This is the woolly side. I put that on the inside, double it up, because this way there's a cushion underneath here. And I painted the inside of it with, actually you could use truck bed lining or something like that, but I painted it with Flex Seal. And then the fender itself, I put some fluid film on it so it won't rust. In other words, if you get water behind there, it won't rust as easily and stuff. So the metal, it's not metal on metal contact because I got this stuff on it. But that tip of that fender is always going to get scratched up no matter what you do, because rocks are flying up on there and stuff like that. And the Sportster is getting to look a little more like a bigger bike because I don't know, it's got the wider seat on it, the Mustang seat, the wider tank, the bigger tank. It's 3.8 gallons, got the bags on it, but still it's exactly like a Sportster. It's not going to be it's not a well, I don't like the big ones, but right now I'm debating about getting can't afford it right now, but getting an early evolution, like what they would call the super glide or the wide glide or the low rider, the FX series, FXR series. They're like the lightest of the big twins that are lower seats, or maybe the 88 cubic inch Dyna, which I know had a problem with the twin cam, so I don't know. Depends if I find a deal, if I'll get that or not. I'd like to have an extra bike, because right now I'm trying to save up parts and I want to do something to it, but I'd rather have two bikes where I'm always up and running. But that's, you can get this. I'll also say this, the issue now with getting parts, you should see how it was in the 90s and before. 70s and 80s and 90s, no internet. So you would be calling up a place and the guy will say he has something. You'll have to look through parts catalogs for umpteen years and go on mail order. You don't know exactly what you're getting. There's like a crappy picture. You're looking at it with a magnifying glass. It's 1,000 times easier to get parts today. So, go look on eBay. But this thing is not, it's not, I remember a friend of mine had this on his bike, on a Sportster, way back, a long time ago. And he had one of those on there. And actually, I didn't like it because it says it doesn't really belong on a Sportster. But I got it because this Defender just keeps getting chipped up. I'd rather have that than paint falling off. So, but again, you put some flex seal on the inside of that thing, so because once that chrome is on there, it's on there with aluminum pop rivets. So there's 3 holes right there. You got one right there, one right there, one right there, and so the inside was coated with Flex Seal, black Flex Seal, so it shouldn't rust. And then I put some fluid film on the paint after that Flex Seal dried and stuff before I put it on. Put fluid film on the paint, and I actually put a little bit of shoe goo rubber adhesive in these holes and on each side, so because that's a spot, it doesn't rust right away, but I like going after rust. Well, one good thing with motorcycles, you don't have to worry about rust as far as salt in the roads, because you're not driving them in the snow, right? It's one good thing, but they will rust. I actually had some rust under that seat one time. I was surprised, a long time ago. Then I fixed it with chassis saver and stuff and got it really locked on. I put some, it's never rusted again, but there always could be some rust on these things, and I hate rust on cars, bikes, anywhere, but you know, you might, you know, and you don't want to scratch up the paint. So like I use this. This is like, you know, it's a Velcro, the fuzzy side. So I put a couple strips of that underneath that thing. So when it's on there, this fuzzy side is up against the paint versus the metal, right? And like where the holes are, it's got the rubberized shoe goo in there, and adhesive. So that's, you know, it's shouldn't rust, but constantly the end of those fenders gets screwed up. You probably should have, like I painted this one in the front, and you know that's one of the advantages of big bikes because they got a lot of these doodads on them. But you know, I'm thinking if I get a bigger bike, one thing I don't like about the bigger bikes though, they're too, well, I hate forward controls. So I'm not getting anything with forward controls. That would probably be the Super Glide or whatever you call that, something like that, you know, the older Super Glide, or they call it the low rider, the wide glide. It's all Super Glides, right? I think they're FXRs or something, FX series bikes. And I hate the forward controls. You know, and I know people hate Sportsters if they're over 6 feet tall. I'm not over 6 feet tall. I'm not short or nothing like that. I'm just kind of average. But well, maybe I'm a little shorter than average, but I'm not like short. And I know there's guys that are much shorter than me that ride the big bikes. They got them set up and they could fit on them easy. But that's not the problem. What I hate about the big bikes. Well, first off, I don't want any forward controls. If that thing weighs 300, if this bike weighs under 500 pounds, if that big bike weighs 800-900 pounds, throwing 300 to 400 more pounds on that bike when you're in a parking lot trying to back it up, it is a pain in the ass. You know, I mean, like, forget about it. I think that, you know, I hate that. For most riding, the Sportster is better. But there's situations, you know, where the bigger bike would be better. This is a rigid mount. So if you go to rubber mount Sportster, you got a problem with you can't take the transmission out unless you take the whole engine out and split the cases, and that's like beyond me. On this one, I could take the transmission out because it's not a rubber mounted Sportster 2003 before, you know, but it vibrates. And actually that's one of the reasons I got this thing on here. Because I don't have to hold my hand, the throttle boss, I don't have to hold my hand that tight. I just lay my wrist on here, give it a little flat throttle, and you know, it'll be vibrating a lot, but I can hold this loose so my hand doesn't get all numb and stuff. That helps too. The Mustang seat helps a lot too. It's good enough. I can actually use this bike for pretty much anything, but I would like to get an extra bike. Was thinking about an early 90s 883, which I can't afford that even, but you know, I'd probably be best off just getting the bigger one, because the early 90s 83 with the 5-speed ain't gonna be much different from this. And like, I'm saving up for the wide ratio setup with the gears on this, so this thing will be geared for highway. It'll pull good from first. It actually does pull good from first because it's already got, the engine's been, it's not just a 1200, it's got other goodies in it. It's got good torque. But it'd be better with the wide ratio. Nothing's on here is broke or worn out, so I'm just kind of stashing parts here and there till when I go to do it. But I'd like to probably, and you know, if I get the big one, I'm probably going to lighten it up, because that's the one thing I don't like about those big ones. I know back in the day, people were getting the shovel heads like as light as this thing, like under 500 pounds. And I think that was with the rigid frame and stuff, but, you know, and one other thing I don't like about the big ones is this whole engine is wider, right? And I swear to God, it hurts my hip after I'm sitting on it after a while. It just cramps up. So I'm not, you know, I got to test this theory out a little more before I go jump on anything and do anything, because, but I would like to have an extra bike, because, you know, this way you're always up and running, right? That's the way to do it. So, super little tiny minor upgrade, quote unquote, the fender tip. You know, people don't even know. You know, it makes the Sportster, it's still a Sportster, it just kind of makes it a little different, you know, tiny little things like that, they all add up. There is a lot of, The engine's got quite a bit of stuff in it. I mean, not extreme amount, but it's got the S&S rods, heavy duty connecting rods. It's balanced at the 60% factor for the high RPM, which also gives you more torque, by the way. It's got different valves. It's got way bigger valves. They're Baisley Tulip high flow stainless steel titanium nitrated valves with the triple RevTech springs, RevTech push rods. It's got an Andrews V4 cam in it. It's got some head work, minor head work. The carb's been all jetted and stuff, and the pipes are open. It's got the high performance ignition with no rev limiter on it. So I think that's about it inside the engine, but I don't know what it puts out. Conservatively, it puts out 80 horsepower, but I think it doesn't put out 100. I know that. It might put out 90 horsepower, but you got to remember this Sportster is the older one, and the older ones are lighter than the rubber mounts. So, and plus I got lighter. I lost like over 50 pounds. So I'm getting down to my skinny weight. You know, if I get down to like 160 or something like that, most riders on these bikes are like 220, 240. I mean, I'll have like a 60 or 80 pound difference weight advantage on them right there. You know, so it makes a huge difference on a bike how much the rider weighs. Big time. So, you know, it's got way more power than I need. I'm not dissatisfied with the power on this bike. You know, that's one of the reasons I tell you to go to the bigger one. It's got more torque, but this thing's got plenty of torque for what, you know, because the bike isn't that heavy. Plus I got a lot lighter too. So, but anyway, over and out. Enough of that shit. But there's a lot of stuff that you could do to these bikes. That's what I like about them. Harley Davidson's getting like totally stupid right now, and they have been for many years. But what makes Harley Davidson is not the company, it's the people that ride them. That's the most important thing.